Hi, my name is Chris Ryan. You've joined me here at the Belfry. We're in the Telemed Performance Centre, and in this video we're going to give you 3 things that you can focus on to make sure you hit your hybrid clubs better when you get out on the golf course. In the corner of the screen, hopefully you should also have details for my Facebook, for my Twitter and for my Instagram accounts, so please make sure you also go ahead and follow me on those. Now, this video is a response to quite a few suggestions that I've had asking me to do a video on how we hit these hybrids. Now, it would suggest to me that there's a lot of golfers out there who are maybe not hitting these clubs as well as they would like. So as I say, we're going to give you 3 things that you might want to look at or try. They're going to hopefully help you hit these clubs better. What I would say is I don't personally think there's anything technically different that we do with a short iron, a mid iron, a long iron, a hybrid. There might just be a couple of maybe setup tweaks, a couple of maybe ideas or thoughts that you can have in your golf swing. But when we're talking about things like club path and playing and all that kind of stuff, it pretty much is the same right through the bag. Maybe drive is a little bit different, but certainly, you know, moving from your mid irons to your longer irons or your hybrids, the fact that the club is a little bit longer, the fact that we're playing with a little bit less loft just makes them a little bit more difficult to use. So point number 1 is to make sure that you set yourself up correctly. So we do see a lot of golfers almost off to the wrong start before they've moved the club away because they're not setting themselves up correctly. Now, hybrid, I would say, is that one club where it's quite versatile. You can play it a little bit further back in your stance, you can play it a little bit further forward in your stance, and it's actually going to give you different impact conditions and different ball flights. So I believe that there's a lot of confusion out there when golfers say, well, some people tell me to hit it more like an iron, some people tell me to hit it more like a wood, and they get a bit confused. The reality is you can play this club in a number of different ways. It's really a case of trying to find out what suits you as the golfer. My advice would be, as a sort of standard shot, and maybe you can tweak this if the lie dictates that or the shot that you've got dictates that, I would suggest playing the golf ball sort of 2/3 up in the stance. So certainly it wouldn't be anywhere near as far forward as I'd have my driver, but I wouldn't want that middle, just ahead of middle like I would have my mid-iron. So it's somewhere between where I play my mid-irons and somewhere where I play my driver. So for me, I like to think of it as about 2/3 forward. What that does is it allows me to still make a slightly descending strike on the golf ball, which we need when the ball's on the ground, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to be too steep and it's going to cause me to have quite a low ball flight. So ball position is going to be 2/3 forward. So if you want to think of that as the distance relative to your heel, it's maybe 4 inches inside your heel. What that will mean, hopefully, provided we have got good balance, is that your sternum or your buttons will also be about 3 to 4 inches behind the golf ball. So that's not a bad way to think about it. Ball is 3 to 4 inches inside the heel, but 3 to 4 inches forward of your sternum. Really, where that ball is relative to your sternum at impact is going to certainly dictate whether we're hitting more down or whether we're hitting more up. So certainly the golfers who play the ball too much in the middle are going to find that they either hit the ball very low or they're finding that they're leaning back in an attempt to get the elevation. Those golfers who play the ball too far forward in the stance will often find they're a little bit too shallow. They tend to catch the bottom of the golf club, they top the ball, or when they do strike it quite well, it tends to go out quite low because there's a bit of gearing, as we call it, on the club face and the ball launches too low. So point number 1 is just to make sure your setup is correct. I'm nicely balanced, ball is 3 or 4 inches inside my front heel, and the zip on my top is about 3 to 4 inches behind the golf ball. That is my starting position. The second point is to think about how you move the club away into your backswing. I want you to feel that the first part of your golf swing is certainly controlled with the shoulders, and I want you to feel it's a little bit slower and a little bit smoother. These golf clubs are generally quite difficult to hit. They are getting towards the longest clubs that we will hit off the ground. Obviously, you might have a 5 or a 3 wood, but they're certainly going to be longer than your mid-irons. As the club gets longer, very simple, it gets harder to use when we're hitting it off the ground. What we often would tend to see is that idea, or the idea that the club is a little bit more difficult to use, would get maybe in someone's head, and we tend to find that the takeaway gets a little quicker. And we often find that if the takeaway gets quicker, we tend to find it's more with the arms. We don't tend to get quite the full turn. If we don't get the full turn, we're not going to generate the right rhythm, and we're definitely not going to generate the speed that we require to hit these balls in the air. Whenever we're using a club with lower loft, we need a little bit more speed in that ball in order to generate the flight that we require. So I want you to feel as if your takeaway is very much with the upper body. The shoulders are controlling that, and I want you to feel it's a little bit smoother. What that's going to do, as I say, it's going to hopefully help you hit this club with a better rhythm, but it's also going to mean that if we start with the shoulders, we should still make a nice full turn, as opposed to those golfers who maybe snatch the club away with the arms, they get a little bit narrow, they get a little bit underturned, and from here it tends to be a little bit of a downward, sort of choppy type motion. So point number 2 is to get that takeaway smoother, slower, and definitely controlling that with the upper body and the torso. Point number 3, this is an impact idea. I have got on the floor a broken T-peg. Very simply, found it in the gravel outside the bay. I'm sure you'll have T-pegs in your bag, at least I'd hope you would. You're going to place this about that far in front of the golf club. So it's about the width, or the length I should say, of my hybrid club head, so whatever that distance is there. And it's just target side of the ball on a direct line to my target. Once we can achieve the correct setup, which I've done there, and once I feel like I can make that takeaway nice and smooth, making sure my upper body controls, the last thing I want you to do is feel as if you're going to make contact with the ball and the T-peg that's on the ground. Now, what this is going to hopefully mean is that your attack angle is slightly downward, so it's a slightly negative attack. The way that the golf club is designed, I don't think you'd be taking divots, but what we know is that the manufacturer spent a lot of time designing these clubs to make them much easier to get into the air relative to maybe a 3 or 4 iron. Therefore, what we need to do is just make sure that we make the right contact. If we make the right contact, the golf club design will get that ball into the air with a little bit more launch and a little bit more spin. The best way for you to make the best contact is to focus 3 to 4 inches behind the ball and get that club slightly descending, so we make contact with the ball and we also make contact with the T-peg. Let me try and give you a demonstration of that. So I'm going to try and go through those 3 things. I'm just going to make my normal golf swing, but just making sure that I take a bit more time over my starting position, making sure my takeaway gets a bit slower, and then trying to feel that I hit the ball and the T-peg as I go through. And that's a pretty good shot. I'd certainly be very happy with that. And you can see the T-peg has gone there. Now, you can't see the ball flight, but to me that was pretty good. It was quite high, certainly had a little bit more spin, and that certainly was a flight that I could use and would be quite functional on the golf course. The T-peg went, which meant that my club was working on a slightly descending blow, and that is exactly what we need to hit those hybrids. To me, that wouldn't have felt like I took a divot. It wasn't a steep approach. It didn't feel like I hit the mat quite hard, but my setup was correct. My ideas for impact were correct, and that meant my attack angle was also good. Let me just hit one more for you. So I'm going to go through those 3 things. Setup is good. Nice smooth takeaway with the upper body, and then I'm going to focus about 3 to 4 inches target side of the ball. And again, really, really happy with that. So, as I say, not so many technical things, because there's nothing you need to change with the hybrid. You don't change your plane or your path or how you turn, nothing like that you change. But a few ideas, a few thoughts, a few focus points might help you hit those clubs a little bit better when you get on the course, and hopefully you'll get that ball a bit closer to the hole. Right, thank you very much for watching the video. I hope that helped. Usual stuff down below. You've got a comments box. You've also got a like button, so please use those as you'd wish. And there should also be a link to subscribe to my channel. Loads of content on there now, loads of videos, well over 200 videos, all hopefully helping you to play some better golf. So please make sure you do subscribe. Right, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again next time.